Hey everyone, Matt Klink here, talking to you from my hotel room in Lisbon. I've just concluded a conference with a bunch of center-left European political consultants, and I have to tell you that the news that I'm going to report is rather disturbing. Much has been made of Congressman J.D. Vance's remarks earlier, where he criticized Europe for concerns over lack of freedom of speech, targeting political parties that with whom the status quo in Europe doesn't agree, and generally the center left and the far lefts. I think they're scared. The fear in their hearts that populism and the people in general are just not satisfied with the European establishment. Case in point, Europeans right now, they pay some of the highest energy rates. I'm sitting here in Lisbon, Portugal, where they just had a massive blackout that they still are not releasing the ultimate cause of said blackout. And yet people in both Spain and Portugal were without power. We're seeing across the European Union, the German government has announced that it is going to now be allowed to internally spy on AfD, which is, they term the far right party in Germany. Mind you, that's a party with 21% of the vote in Germany, largely driven by young voters who are very concerned with migration. What the Europeans call migration, we call illegal immigration. And I do find it rather ironic, by the way, that the EU is paying Turkey $6 billion to take Syrian migrants, in large part because they don't want those people in their country. So leave it to the left to pay someone else to handle their problems, but then play holier than thou in their country. Similar things are happening in France, where the leader of the far right party in France has been denied the opportunity to run for elections. Again, what's happening here is status quo in Europe, largely the center and the center left. They realize that high taxes, high energy costs, low quality of life, decreasing standard of living, that people are frustrated and they're reacting. Instead of trying to change their policies, what they're trying to do is limit free speech. Add to that, the European Union passed something called the Digital Services Act, which allows individual European Union countries to regulate the internet, meaning that the people in power will control what the voters hear and see, again, because they fear, they'll say, oh, it's misinformation. We need to put a firewall between truth and fact, and we can't let evil people come and spread misinformation. I guess it is true, I don't guess, I know that it is true that America, we have our First Amendment, and we believe that if someone wants to spread horrible rumors and lies, that the truth will ultimately drown it out. The Europeans think that they know better and they're able to determine what is the truth, and they would rather have a government censor limit people's ability to say what they want to say. Again, it is a mortal fear for them that 40 plus years of social democrat societal engineering is coming to an end. The grim reality for Europe is that populism or nationalism is not a bad thing. It equals patriotism. It is here to stay. And the Europeans, by restricting speech, by attempting to ban people who legitimately win elections from serving in said elections, or trying to keep people off the ballot like the Democrats did to Donald Trump, the public sees through this and they're going to have a reaction. So my advice to my European colleagues on the center left is you're the little Dutch boy trying to put your fingers in a leaking dike, and you can try mightily, but ultimately you're going to fail. Efforts to rein in people's ability to communicate, especially in a world where we don't have a main television station or a main newspaper that is relied upon for the news or the accurate news. That doesn't exist anymore, in part because those news outlets have been discredited and because of the ease by which people can communicate. So this is deeply, deeply disturbing, and it's really, really troubling that Western Europe is headed down this path. And I just fear that the landing that they're going to have is going to be ugly and brutal, because the populist parties are going to continue to rise, not only on the right, but also on the left. Again, in large part because the status quo has failed and people are just not getting the services that they demand from an elected government.